It's Wednesday. That means you got to wine with me. Hi, I'm Tracy Burns from Fox Business Network. This is my favorite time of the entire week, especially because, well, I get to talk to really fabulous people who make really fabulous wine, and today's no exception. Chuck Wagner is with us right now of Caymus out in Napa Valley. He is the vineyard owner, winemaker, started doing this when he was the ripe old age of 19. Chuck, I'm so glad you're with us because there's a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the wine, but I really want to talk about how the California economy is affecting wine. But let's take a total step back. Your family, your parents, right, if I have this right, went out, bought a bunch of acres, and we're actually making wine for Inglenook. I remember Inglenook.
Well, it kind of starts like that. My family's been in Napa Valley for over 100 years, actually. And both my parents were born and raised around Napa Valley and all of the farming here. But my mom and dad had an idea about 1971 to begin a small commercial venture and utilize some of the grapes we grow right here on the ranch in Rutherford. We would call it Caymus Vineyards. They brought me the offer, and so I joined them, starting off pruning vines with my father in November of 1971, producing our first wine in 1972, about 250 cases of Cabernet. And things went from there.
Now, back then, that was kind of... I don't know if heroic's the right word, but to go off on your own, there was only a bunch of big names back then, right? There was Gallo, there was all the, the screw top. We had the screw top Inglenook on our table when growing up too, right? So what made them think, you know what, we can try to get a little niche wine out there and it could work?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, there were maybe 10 active wineries in 1972. And my father was a home winemaker, and he was encouraged by the neighbors to get into the business commercially. So we just kind of took his methods, his winemaking methods, and put them to commercial use. So that's how we started.
Caymus, I think, is most famous for its Cabernet. I mean, even though there's a slew of other wines, how'd you get that Cabernet out there? Because again, flash forward to today, there are tons of vineyards all making boutique wines, and that Caymus Cabernet just seems to shine no matter where you go.
Thank you. I think what we have developed over the last now 40 years is a house style, something that people who like our wine one time can depend on that same wine the next year and the year after. I think consistency has been part of the key for us. Like anything, winemaking is so individual, and there's so many components. Even if there are 100 or 200 Cabernets out of Napa, I've never had two that taste exactly the same to me. So it's really up to the winemaker and for ourselves developing this rather niche of consistency in a product that is known to be Caymus in style.
How did you make the jump then from getting it into restaurants? You started making it, you're making great wine, you got the locals drinking it. Really, the home run is when you get it on that restaurant menu, right? And somebody says, I love this, I got to go find it the next time I go to a wine store.
Right. Well, I think we've made our first wines. We were afraid we weren't going to be able to sell one bottle.
Oh, wow.
So we ended up actually trusting the news media at that time. It was San Francisco Examiner wrote an article, and one wine critic of the day, Robert Finnegan, wrote our wine up as being special, and so our phone began to ring. So then we got into a few restaurants, and things changed incredibly in the last 40 years. Napa Valley itself used to be primarily prunes and walnuts and cattle, and now, of course, it's all grapes. So the whole business grew up around us. I think, my folks and I, we worked together for many years. Actually, my father and I worked in the winemaking side for 30 years before he passed on. And today we follow up with, trying this same tried and true tradition of growing grapes and making wine. And by the way, Tracy, we are farmers first and winemakers second. So that's one guarantee to quality is the fruit. You've got to have great fruit. So we think we're pretty good at growing fruit and pretty good at making wine.
What's interesting is your dad came to you and said, oh, by the way, back in 1972, you're going to come work on this vineyard. Did you say the same to your sons today, or did they just grow up in it and decide they wanted to be a part of it?
Well, in fact, 3 of my 4 children are working in our business at this time. So That's a very positive thing, and if grapes and wine don't keep me jumping, my kids do.
Yeah, no joke.